The Odd Duck mission is that Odd Duck discovers, shapes, and shares transformative stories for impact-driven organizations working to improve a world in urgent need of change. So, like I said, you're an expert storyteller, and storytelling is actually a skill that we talk about quite a lot at FRC as well. So can you speak a little bit to just the power of storytelling and why this is a skill leaders and organizations who want to truly make an impact should be investing in and honing?
And storytelling helps us to remember things better. So rather than getting tactical instructions on like how to throw a spear or how to shoot an arrow, like hearing a story about a great archer, it packs all the same information in a far more memorable way. And that's just the way we as a human species are wired. But number one reason that he finds as far as an evolutionary purpose that storytelling and play, creative play, serve to the species is social cohesion. That's it. That's what's up right there. That social cohesion piece, right? Because if we have a shared story that we're all bought in on, we're all going to vie for and fight for our piece of living that story, right? And so I always say, like, to my clients, like, if a story can do that for the species, imagine what it can do for your brand, right?
Massive.
Right. So that's the piece for the organization. And a large part of that is both getting your entire team on the same page, sharing the same story, living from the same story. So how is your organization living that story? The other part of that is how are you pushing that story out to the world? And so that's that disruptive story piece that I was talking about earlier. So if you have, all of our belief systems for the most part, as a whole, are made up of narrative, and narratives are shaped by every piece of media that we're sort of exposed to in one way or another. What I often invite my clients and challenge my clients to do is figure out, well, what are the entry points? How can your story disrupt that broader narrative, right? And a lot of that is just exploring what is that narrative framework? How are we telling our story to disrupt that as individual change agents, as ambassadors or champions of causes, or just being an individual who wants to share their story in the world? One of the things that I've found is it's not, there's a tendency to sort of have three main sort of components in the typical story that individuals tell, and those components are usually sort of like my personal piece, then what the issue is / what the research says, and then this call to action. And the mistake that I find most people make is they tell it in that way. It's sort of the outline that you did on the school paper in your persuasive essay in 8th grade, where you're like, okay, I really got to teach my classmates to buy these shoes. So I'm going to persuade them, whatever. Right. And so we have a tendency to think of in those blocks. And so here I'm going to share my personal story, and then I'm going to share this. And what we found being far more effective is what I refer to as the braided effect, or the braided approach. Right. And that is literally, you're taking these inflection points from your life, you're combining them with the research or the issue or the cause that you're trying to advance. And then you have a call to action for how the audience can meet you in that story and carry it further. And then you're weaving those things together. If I'm going out and advocating the FRC way of doing things, which I often do, right? That is far more valuable than somebody who's paid to tell that story or paid to share that piece, right? What is the why? What is the motivation behind sharing this story, right? And secondly, is there a way that we can build this in? So are there ways that even in our team meetings, we're sharing experiences that happened over the weekend that reinforce our brand or reinforce the values of the organization?